All right, folks, we're in the 8th week now. We're halfway through, or almost halfway through this semester, and we're trying to get the second essay done. We're in good shape. We're really on on course for everything and on time for everything. And overall, the first essays I've gotten from both classes are quite good. You're moving in the right direction. I do want to remind everybody, and I told a lot of folks this, most students, if they keep working at their essays and keep doing a good job on them, they generally end up a grade higher than where they started. But even if you got a C on the first one, you could end up with an A in the class. You get that rewrite done, really go at improving the descriptions, the analyses, and those thesis statements. You can do really well in this class. So keep at it and keep doing your best. Most of the skills that you learned with Antigone are going to be transferring over now with Shoah. Okay, those are the ability to summarize things. That's what you've been doing at the discussion boards. Make sure you get that done. Get the discussions done, get the summaries done, and describe what's going on with the testimonies. Be aware there's going to be some contradictions, some oddities. Watch the way they behave when they're talking about things. You can never be certain if they're absolutely telling the truth or if they're absolutely lying. Most of what you get from these testimonies are a matter of emphasis. In other words, they're not overtly lying about things, but they're emphasizing certain things, de-emphasizing others. They are sometimes talking about one thing and want to keep talking about it. They really don't want to talk about something else. There can be different reasons for it. Okay, you will tend to see from the guards and from the guards a desire not to talk about how they were personally involved in things, how they personally knew what was going on. Okay. And again, it's a very complicated situation going through that whole situation, what was going on in Germany and everything else. But understand, they generally don't want to talk about how they personally knew what was going on or were personally responsible. Okay. You will often get from the Jewish survivors a real avoidance of talking about things that were incredibly painful to watch or to endure. Let me move myself down a little bit here. You'll get a desire to avoid talking about those things where they remember particular people, exact situations. They don't want to go back because those emotions tend to get triggered, and so they will almost angrily defend not wanting to talk about that. And so that will happen in many of them. So not always the same way, different ways. They have ways of avoiding, ways of talking about it, ways of working through it. And so it's always watching where the silences are, where the avoidance is, what they're trying to do, what they're not trying to do. You're not going to get outright lies, usually. You'll get a lot of avoidance and emphasis. You'll get a lot from the Polish villagers, emphasis on how they tried to save people, but then you get other times where it's very clear there wasn't any attempt to tell anybody about what was going on, to prevent what was going on. They just let it happen. You'll get that from some people, just don't care what anybody thinks. So you'll get a lot of that, and watch the body language that's going on, the nuance, and you'll really understand how genocides take place, because these take place in real time with real people who have different ways of talking about things, different ways of understanding things, different ways of allowing things to go on. And these are, with us today. We're no different than the Jews, than the Poles, and the Germans. We really are no different. Just be aware of how it takes place and how this unfolds. Okay, so as you go through, watch those, watch the words they use and everything else. Those skills we started to develop with Antigone are very appropriate to talking about primary sources, and that's what we're doing with Shoah. We're dealing with primary sources, testimonies from the Holocaust. And you're going to be analyzing, or you're going to be describing how Simon Srebnick talks about his time at Chelmno and what went on, how he sings those songs that he did. You're going to be dealing with the Polish villagers, possibly, how they talk about things and how certain people want to enthusiastically talk about what they did and what went on and how they remember this really delightful young man. And everything else. And what are they trying to emphasize and what are they trying to forget or have forgotten? You get with Sukhomel, who does not know he's being recorded. Very precise, detailed descriptions of the process in Treblinka. that this was a factory of death. They were producing dead bodies. They were taking living people and making dead people out of them. And efficiency was tantamount. That was what they were after. And he describes things in a very clear manner. He still wants, he enthusiastically sings and other things, but he also describes and he almost takes pride in the efficiency that he was a part of creating, that this was an accomplishment, okay? In a very odd way, but he also doesn't want to be held personally responsible for killing so many people, for such a mass murder. Again, I do want to address that issue that does come up sometimes. He didn't know he was being recorded. Is that ethical to quietly do this? Keep in mind he was part of a mass murder. Do mass murderers really have the right to privacy to talk about their involvement in a mass murder on a scale that is just unheard of? So that's why Landsman and the vast majority of assessments of it is perfectly justified to do this, underhandedly and expose what was going on. Because again, this was a mass murder of historical proportions that's rarely ever been seen. So Sukomo doesn't know that. And then you get Bamba talking about things. Keep in mind that Bamba was needed to keep people calm. His actions, and he knows that. He knew what he was doing. He had a part in it. But the people he was giving haircuts to, they also knew what he was doing. And they understood that. They understood how people had very compromised positions that Bamba did and others did. So they all understood what was going on, but nobody talked about it. People were quiet about what was really transpiring. Do you really think the people who were getting their haircut really thought they were just getting a haircut? Probably not. And Bamba knew that these weren't just haircuts, okay? There was all these silences throughout. There were people just didn't talk about things. So be aware of that. Watch the way people talk around what they cannot talk around. And then when Bamba can't speak and he's stunned by his own recall of a moment that he probably hadn't thought about in decades, where he had those people who he recognized and they recognized him. And why did he have to stop? Why did he get angry? Okay? Keep that in mind. Watch when they talk about in the ghettos, when they talk about what happened in the long delays. You had the one Polish messenger who had such a horrendous time at the start of the interview talking about what had happened. Now, he was a messenger and he is Polish. He wasn't Jewish. He was Catholic. But he knew what was going on, and he clearly was devastated by what he knew what was going on. But he took a very stoic approach to it in passing on the messages. But he had seen things and gone through things that were, for him, horrifically difficult to talk about. Why? But then notice when he talks, how he almost flatlines. That's his way of dealing with it. Okay? And then you get the others, Rotem and others, talking about it. And clearly their difficulties, but notice the way they talk about how they dealt with this impossible situation. So that's what you're going to be dealing with throughout. You're going to pick one of those three areas, one of the three, not all three, and you're not writing a report. We're doing much of what we did like with Antigone. You're writing an analysis of Chelmno, the survivors in Simon Srebnik, or Michael Plotchev, I can't pronounce his name, Michael, whom I've written about, and I'll show you that. You're going to write about him, or write about Srebnik, or something else. Pick something that you find interesting, or you're going to go to Treblinka. Go there. Don't go to all three. Go to one and write about that one. Okay? Really get some focus. Or go to the Warsaw Ghetto and write about what Rotem describes and what he goes through. Okay? So pick one and get that focus from the beginning. And then get your 4 good quotations. Get 4 good quotations. And you can do, if you want to write about Treblinka, for example, 2 from Bamba and 2 from Sukomo. You can do that. You can do Rotem and just only deal with his narrative of what he's doing from the early part, the middle, and the later part. You can do Simon Srebnik and then the Polish villagers. You can. I will allow you to go a little bit off if you want to, but I would ask just to try to keep it within some boundaries. Early on, what you want to do is stay within those boundaries and get your quotations that are closely tied together. Okay? Now let me go through a little bit of what I've changed. And this is all good. I'm not going to change the game up on you. The thing I've changed is the calendar. I'm going to move the due date back on you. Again, I want to give you more time. We're still on course to finish on time, okay? I moved the due date. Let me get myself out of here. Let's get my ugly mug out. I've moved the due date back to Friday night. Now, I don't like giving you guys Friday night because I know you have better things to do than write these essays. You know, somebody's got to go out and dance. So if you want to get the essay done early, get it done Thursday still or whatever, that's great. Send it in to me Thursday as an attachment onto a course message document. Send it in early. But I'm going to give you, in case you need more time, until Friday evening, okay? End of the day Friday, 11:59. Let me actually make sure I've got it at 11:59. Yeah, that's close enough. Let's say 11:59. If you get it into me then, I'm good to go. That's fine, okay? So I moved that over. The assignment is basically the same. We're going to do the chapter 2 in the grammar book next week. We'll put some videos up on that, and keep you guys up to date on that. Okay. So make sure you're moving on chapter 2. After you get that essay done, really, buckle down and get on chapter 2. Okay. Let me go through a little bit of the assignment just so folks know what we're doing. And let me watch. And I'm going to go through this kind of quickly because you should know what to do from the Antigone essay. Now, the first thing we've talked about with the assignment, and this is what I just spoke about, this is the assignment sheet. And you guys should get it by now. What you're doing is going through and doing either Chelmno, Treblinka, or the Jewish uprising in the Warsaw ghettos. We've got, let me bring myself back in. Okay. We're doing one of those. You have to do one of those. You should get your quotations from it. Now, the big thing you've got to do early on is get 4 quotations, okay, within either Chelmno, Treblinka, or the Jewish uprising. Okay, you choose the parameters, and then you find those 4 quotations that you just think are good to go. And this is where, if you did not get the Shoah book, you're going to have some problems. If you did, boy oh boy, are you going to save some time. Now again, I know this is a movie, but it's really hard to transcribe your quotations from the movie. It is. So, and I want to be able to trace down all of your quotations to the book. You can, if you want to, use time signatures, times within the movie. I don't quite know how to do that. I'm not going to explain how to do it. I'm going to just give you how to work from the book, okay? So if you did not get the book, you've got a problem. It's going to be more difficult. If you've got the book, you're going to be good to go, okay? So you find those parameters first of all. I don't want to go through all of this. This you can go through later. But what I did just do is I did post the first draft stage and the second draft stage. These look exactly like the Antigone ones. Exactly like it. It's the same process with new materials. This is how you do critical thinking. This is it. It's got a process to it. It takes some real, grunt work, but it's got a process to it that generally works for folks. Now, if you got one of those one of those really high B's or one of those A's, which a few folks got, you can follow your own process. But if you're in the low B or in the C range, or, some folks did get D's on that, I strongly urge you to follow my process on this because I've seen it work over the years, okay? I'm not going to give you any work to do that I don't think is going to help you, okay? Here's the first one. Now, again, I want to be very clear about this. If you open this like this and then you type in it, it's not going to save. I want to make that very clear. You must download that darn thing onto your computer, and I've done that already. You must download this PDF onto your computer so that you have the basic PDF on your desktop or wherever. Okay, so if you don't do that, it's not going to save. That's a common error that people make, is they don't save the PDF on their computer. So I really want to urge you to do that. So save it onto your computer and do it that way. And then it's the same thing as we did with Antigone. It's the same basic thing. I give some directions here, but here it is. This is early first draft stage. What you're going to do is write a quotation with 3 to 6 lines. And you can do, if we did Sukomo and Bamba, I could write 3 to 6 lines from Sukomo here. And then you know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to describe what Sukhumol is talking about here. He's describing the situation where they're pushing people down these funnels and they're beating on them. He thinks they are. Landsman asks him about it. He doesn't remember them beating them. But Landsman asks them why wouldn't they? And he says, well, I guess why not? But he actually remembered that they didn't. Okay. And then I discuss why it's important. Well, Sukhumol seems to be dropping out this idea that they're beaten because he doesn't want to actually recall the violence in leading up to their deaths. But he actually talks about it as a gentle thing. And I'm going to tell you something weird at this point. I think Sukhumol was telling the truth at first. When I analyzed those scenes, I think he was. But you know what? Landsman thinks they were beating the Jewish victims. I don't think they were. This is where I get to analysis. I won't get too much into it, but I want to make very clear. You can analyze that situation and say that Sukhumol thinks they, does admit that they were probably beating them because Landsman pushes him on it. But he first said that they weren't. Now, I definitely think Sukhumol is responsible for constructing this. I think Sukhumol was part of actually constructing a theater where they did not fear death. And so they didn't beat them because they want to gently get them into the death chamber. So I want to be clear. That's why I think it is. Landsman thinks they were brutal throughout. He has very good reason for that. That's the difference in analysis. If we actually look at those situations, those carefully, you can analyze it differently. As long as you treat it carefully, you can go in different directions. And that's something I really want to emphasize. Critical thinking works that way. You can come up with different assessments in the end. As long as you're working with the evidence carefully, you can come up with different assessments. That's how I actually treat Sukhumol differently than even Landsman does, even though I think Landsman is magnificent the way he did this movie. Same thing. Then you can get a Bomba quotation, 3 to 6 lines. Give yourself enough to work with. Don't get those little tiny quotations of half a line or those one-line quotations. You won't be able to do enough with it. Okay. And then another Sukhumol maybe, or another Bomba. Or you can get Srebnik and then do a Polish Villagers and then 2 more Srebnik quotations. So as long as you get that, you treat those quotations carefully, you've got a good rough draft. Let me show you what I did with it. Let me get rid of my ugly mug one more time. This is one I did with the early, and again, notice always look for the lavender. That means I downloaded this PDF onto my computer. I just want to show you what I did earlier. And I'll show you this later on. Hopefully I'll be able to finish it. I might not. I did Michael Plotchevnik. And this is a quotation. He recalls that it was 1941, 2 days before New Year. They were routed out at night. I just thought that was a cool quotation. Let me come back in. I just liked that one. I don't know why. Okay, and then I described it. Plotchevnik, and boy did I have a hard time spelling his name. And I described what was going on. And I don't know where my essay's going yet, but I thought that was a cool quotation. And then why are these lines important? The threats to the Jews are known from what is not said or done, but are understood through the silence of the Germans and others around them. That's why I think that quotation was important. That's what I think was revealed here. He already understood. So notice nobody said anything. They just understood it. And so that's what I found after I analyzed it. I didn't know that beforehand. Good thinking is slow thinking. I did the same thing here. Here's another quotation. I think it's Plotchevnik. And yeah, it is. And so I went after him, and he's in the Chelmno one. Same thing. I got a quotation, and then I described it carefully. And then I said why it's important. And I'm telling you right now, I've changed some of this. I did a middle draft too, and I've changed some of this. I didn't know a lot of this when I started. I discovered it as I was analyzing it. It's a process of discovery. And it's a slow process. It takes some work. But boy, does it work. A lot of folks just jump in too fast and then the wheels fall off. When you do it in this slow process, everything works gradually, and it's kind of nice. Then I had a third quotation. Again, this was when they were talking to one of the Polish villagers around Chelmno, Miss Michelson. And I just thought she was creepy as hell. So I took a quotation from her and I described it. She knew what was going on. Okay, she knew exactly what was going on. And notice the way she dodges things. She was changing the topic. That's why it's important. Even though she admits she knew what was going on, she keeps changing away. She just does it naturally. It's kind of odd. And then the same things. Miss Michelson, again, another quotation. And I want to show you, that was my first draft stage, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I really did not. And so I want everybody in the early draft stages to not be afraid to just find things that are interesting. And then I took this into the middle draft stage, and you're going to see I changed things around. This is the middle draft stage one. I did similar things, but I started to change them. Here's where I set the context. Remember, in the middle draft stage, you're really refining what you've already done early on. Here's the first body paragraph. Notice I don't have a quote introduction yet. I don't have it. I go back to that first body paragraph. I've got to set the context. I do the quotation again. I describe it, and I've refined my writing. I'm better this time. This is slightly different. This analysis I've refined and I've rewritten. I rewrote this analysis. This is important to see. Here's the first draft stage. Let me take you back to that first body paragraph. And note, I did this on the fly. Here's the quotation, the description, and the analysis from the first body paragraph. Here it is again. Here's the quotation, the description, and analysis. I've added the context. I've refined the description, and I've refined the analysis. Let's look at the difference between the analyses. The threats to the Jews are known from what is not said or done, but are understood through the silence of the Germans and others around them. Let's see what I wrote. The threats to the Jews are known from what is not said or done, but are understood through the silence of the Germans and the absence of Jews who own the clothes scattered through the castle. Notice I've taken what I had before, and I've got my misspellings always. I spell terribly, guys. I'm the English teacher who can't spell. I've taken what I did before, and I'm refining it, developing it, and making it better. That's what I'm doing. The Germans said nothing, but Plotchleibnik and the other Jews did not ask anything about what was happening. Here's the first draft. Silence about what was... oh boy, I'm going to lose it here. Well, I'm going to lose it. This thing always crashes on me. But what I want you to see is that I'm refining my analysis as I'm going through. And it changes throughout. Let me shut this down, because this is actually going to crash on me. It always does. I'm refining my analysis as I work through it. And it's getting better and better and better as I go through it. And it's a process. The ideas don't come to me right from the start. The ideas come to me kind of as I pound through it. And then I make them better. Yeah, it's gone. So I make them better and better and better as I work through it. And then I had at the end my thesis statement. I revise it. So go through those stages, guys. If you were getting in the D, C, and even in the lower B range, go through those stages. If you're in the A or the upper B range, you probably know what you're doing and just got to do some tweaks, okay? So keep at it with Showa. Transfer those skills over. Get that into me by the end of the night Friday. I'll try to make another video. I can't promise you. I'm still working on a lot of stuff. But keep at it, guys. I'm really looking forward to what you're doing here, okay? Take care.